What you need to know to identify the chests in the outer ramparts of the stables is that there's multiple ramparts, but the only ones that can generate chests are the ones outlined with the blue wool here. So basically, the outer one and the middle ones cannot spawn any chests. And to identify where the chests are, you are going to be looking for two basalt shapes. This one, this is not a part of the shape, this is the shape that you want to look for. It's like basalt air pod, and this one, like 3 blocks of basalt like this. And the way it works is that there's 4 layers on each side, and this one needs to be on the first or the third layer. That means there's a chest there. And this one needs to be on the second or fourth layer. That means there's a chest. If there's like 2 in a row, like let's say this was an AirPod, it would mean there is no chest here. And it's flipped, basically. So on this side, the AirPod should be on the second and fourth layer. This is not the one because this is the outer rampart on this side. And the 3-block one should be on first and the third layer. And it's the same on this side, except it's flipped again. So here the AirPod needs to be on the second and on the first and second and third layer, and on this side it would mean that AirPod needs to be on the second and the fourth layer. Here it's on the second layer. There's a chest. If it was on the first layer, there wouldn't be a chest. So the way I memorized it is the AirPod starting from here, it's on the first and third, and then you can work your way through it. So first and third on this one, second and fourth on this one, and it's flipped here, so it's first and third. So here, this is the third layer, there's an AirPod here, and there's a chest. Like in this bastion, for example, on this side, AirPod is on the second layer, which means there's not going to be a chest. Also, sometimes you can tell by how far the lantern is. Like this lantern is pretty far, so you know this one is going to be fake. This one also doesn't have a chest because it's on the first layer, but it should be on the second and fourth. And also the lantern is far. There's no other good signs of a chest. So here, this thing is on the second layer, which means there's a chest, and also there's a close lantern. There's nothing else here. This one as well, on the second layer, so it's correct, and there's also a lantern that you can see, which means there's a chest. Here as well, there's going to be a chest because this is like these two patterns, they alternate. So if you know there is a chest here and you see the opposite pattern, one above or one below, that means there's also going to be a chest. So there's also just more convenient situation where you can spot the chests. For example, when you're standing in the low chest, you can sometimes just see it, but also if you're either looking at FI when stacking up here or just like running over here, you can see this lava, which means there's going to be a chest here. When running up top on the stables, you can tell if there's a chest below you. Basically, it works the same way. So this rampart and this rampart is gonna have the same identifier, and these two ramparts are gonna have the same one. So when you see a lava over here at the top, that means there is a chest here at the back, and then it's the same for this one. So when you see two blocks of lava like that, that means there's gonna be a chest. And for these two, when you see this 5 blocks of basalt like this in a square and one sticking out, that means there is also just going to be a chest here. When running upstairs over here, you can sometimes see that there's can be a chest here. So this weird shape, like a T shape over here with an L shape over here, and there's always a 2-block gap over here. Sometimes it's not really a 2-block gap because it depends on the variation of this rampart, so sometimes it's gonna be like enclosed a little bit. I'll include more screenshots, but basically just a 2-block gap, like a T shape of a black stone that goes down here, and L shape over here. You can also identify chests by looking at the middle, and if you see the two hanging lanterns from the ceiling, that means there's going to be a chest here. When there is lanterns either standing or something, that means there's not going to be a chest. Or if there's one hanging lantern like over here. And they're usually like on the outside, you can just see them right away. These two stand on the wall, so that means there's not going to be a chest. There's only one lantern there. There's two lanterns here. There's two lanterns here, so there should be two chests here. Yeah. Two lanterns, a chest. There's multiple ways of identifying good and bad gaps in the stables, depending on where you are in the bastion. If you mine this block and it's a black stone, that means it's a good gap. If you mine this block and it's air, or there's a netherrack, or basalt, that means it's a bad gap. When you're running upstairs and want to identify this gap, most people know that when there's a cracked blackstone here, that means that this is a bad gap, but when there's just a blackstone wall over here, that means it's a good gap. But you can sometimes it gets covered in the netherrack, so a better way to do this is by mining this blackstone block. When you see the air behind it, and it's like open, that means it's a good gap. But when there's gonna be a blackstone over here, that means it's a bad gap. We can also identify gaps by looking at the back of the exposed bastion. As you can see, the left side has a lot more bumps in here, and the right one is a lot more flat. You also can just see the gold block and the backup area on the right side here, so that means it's a good gap. And when it's like bumpy like this, it's a bad gap. A way of identifying gaps from this side is if you see this hole, that means it's a good gap. And on this side, if you can see either this chiseled blackstone or you just see the gold block sticking out, that means it's a good gap. For the same sides, obviously, if you don't see this hole, that means it's a bad gap. And on this side, if there's like this circular bump in here, that means a bad gap. And obviously, the most original way of identifying gaps is where the name gap comes from. If there is one block gap in here, that means it's a good gap. And when it's a 2-block gap, that means it's a bad gap. Another way to identify right side gap is when it's a good gap, there's going to be a crack over here that you can enter through and start your route if you want to. And when it's a bad gap, this crack is going to be on the right side over here instead, and you can also enter here and loot this chest. This can be applicable if the bastion is buried. So basically, in the single rampart, if there is an opening over here, then it's a good gap. And when you go over here and the opening is in front of you, that means this is a bad gap. When you're in the right gap and you have time to overlap trading the gold, you can loot the bottom middle chest by going to the boat over here, digging twice diagonally and hacking this corner, and just mining down, kind of. And you should switch to your axe before you loot the chest. That way, you can just left and right click the boat at the same time and exit and pick it up. If you don't have a boat, you should probably stack up over here, go to this crack, and if you go all the way down and you mine this block, you can access the same chest. You can also check for the outer rampart chest at the same time while you're here. If you get rolled on the amount of pigs you have while doing the gap route, while grabbing backups, you should pay attention if you hear any pigs aggro at you, because if there's a double or a triple above you, you can access more pigs by just digging up over here. There's sometimes going to be more pigs that just pathfind downwards, and you can grab them, and it's the same on both sides. You mine in the same spot, and it's the same if it's a double or a triple. You can also try getting more pigs by just mining towards the outer rampart and getting more pigs, but it's inconsistent, so depending on like which rampart there is here. So you should just pay attention. If you hear a lot of pigs, then it's probably worth grabbing them. When running downstairs towards the gap, there's two things. First, you can head hitter on these blocks every time you go down, and the second important part is that you can mine this block to save a little bit of time, but also it is important for you to block this off, because the piglins will try to pathfind towards you by going to the lowest block, the same as in the middle triple, and they will get stuck over here. The reason it's more important if you're doing the beef salad hole by doing this, because if you're doing the normal hole, you'll kind of be stuck over here for a while by making the hole, mining the blocks, and the piglins will have enough time to just path properly towards you. But with the beef salad hole, we're kind of just running down so much faster, and the lowest block for them to reach you will be over here instead of actually where they need to go. So I think the play that a lot of people miss out on is when the bastion is buried and you start the route somewhere in the middle, you can check the rampart above your gap by just going up these stairs. And I think the best way is just by digging up here and stacking up. This will lead you to a double and a triple in the same way. You can tell that it's a triple if you just, when you dig up, there's going to be a basalt over here. Obviously, you can also do this play when the bastion is open, by just going upstairs. You can dig out to the side and stack up. It's going to be way faster. Also, there's a good exit spot. If you know the fortress is that way, you can dig through this and exit this way. And when you run upstairs and you see this gap over here, that means this is a single chest and you can access it by breaking this block really easy. And by the way, this will apply the same for the both sides. You can also climb the bad gaps the same way as you can in the good gaps, all the way up to the rampart. And it's always going to be open no matter which rampart it is at the top. You can always just get there without mining any blocks. If the bastion is buried and the middle is a lantern chest, you can mine two of these blocks to the right of this chest. And if you see this block and this is a basalt, that means it's going to be a triple. And this is how it's going to look like when it's a lantern. There's no basalt block there. And it also looks very similar when it's a single. When entering triple from below, it's important for you to run and stack up over here instead of running around this corner, because there's piglins over here that will aggravate you. And if you're forced to go this way, let's say you don't have blocks or there's a sword guy behind you, what you can do is you can aggro the pigs and then hide behind the corner for a second, and they will de-aggro you and you can run past them. You can also access the chests by stacking up in front of this lantern as well. If you stack up 4 blocks, and then you can open this chest, and you can, by aiming like slightly above the first pixel of these nether bricks, you can get this chest as well. When approaching the bastion from behind, if there's a double triple, you can start your route by going into this gap over here. It also works on this side, but you have to mine a little bit more. Also, if there's only one triple or you want to run triple to gap, you can enter the triple by aligning yourself with the middle double pillar like this and digging 1 block below here, and you can just run straight towards the chests. If the left side of the triple is buried or you can't access it, what you can do is by finding these 2x2 cracked bricks that sort of identifies where the gold blocks are. So what you can do is you can just dig in here and dig through this and start your route from here. When approaching the left triple from the side, you can enter through this gap, but there's usually a pigments over here, so make sure you have the gold distractions, or you can just run over here and do the stack up. This also applies when the when the middle is single, but it's kind of better when you're approaching it from the back over here. You can also enter through this gap, even though it's kind of buried, but it also works. The way to identify top ramparts from the back is obviously the single is going to be the shortest and it's going to have these basalts over here, and also this part is kind of cut off. But the double and the triple are kind of similar because they have 6 blocks of just like flat brick wall over here. So the way you can tell them apart is the double has this gap over here. You can enter here and loot the chest. You can also use this for leaving the bastion very often if you know the fortresses this way. And obviously it has these basalt thingies, but sometimes it's going to be covered with the rain. So if you can only see the first 6 blocks, this is your way to tell them apart. When doing middle triple to gap route, it is important for you to block this off because the piglins always try to pathfind you towards you by reaching the lowest block. So some pigs will be falling behind, and when you run downstairs, they will try to pathfind you towards you by running into this, and they will get stuck over here and never reach the gap with you. But usually there is pigs over here. So if you're entering from the middle triple from below over here, you can just pre-block it off, and that will make your life a lot simpler. But when you enter it from the top and you need to do this, you can just drop 1 gold to distract the piglins behind you and in front of you and just block it off. When doing right triple to gap route and the middle is single, some pigs will eventually just fall over to the side. So what you can do is block yourself in. You can replace these blocks, and you can mine through over here just to open it up for them. When you're entering the right triple and the middle is buried, but you want to do triple to gap, and if this gap ends up being bad under you, you can access towards the middle by digging over here. You know, a lot of people dig over here, but I think it is better objectively to just dig over here because here it's going to be a single because there's no black stone above me, it's a netherrack. So it's better to dig way on the left because it lines up you towards the single chest way better. Also, when it is a double, you need to be careful when running towards the middle because there's going to be a lot of pigs over here meta use. So be sure to have gold on your bar and drop it when necessary. You're doing right triple into the bad gap and then towards the left gap. It's important for you to break this block or block it off because the pigs will eventually get stuck over here while chasing you. Since the middle rampart of the stables is offset 2 blocks forwards towards the outer ramparts, you can identify which triple you're in by looking at the chunk borders. So if you open your chunk borders and you can see them either here or 1 block further here, depending on the orientation of the bastion, that means you're on the side triples. So it will look the same over here as well. You can just see the chunk border near the gold blocks. But if you open the chunk borders and it's either flushed with the wall or you cannot see the chunk border, that means you're in the middle.